This carton contains 16.8 grams of total sugar in a 250 milliliter serve. Its ingredients include cane sugar, maltodextrin, vegetable oils, fructose, flavors, gums, and added vitamins and minerals. Before I show you the front, rewind. In 2009, Australia and New Zealand's food ministers commissioned the independent Blewett Labelling Review. In 2011, it recommended a simple interpretive front label. Government, industry, public health, and consumer representatives helped develop the formula. Then, just before launch, the website was pulled down on the order of Abbott Government Assistant Health Minister Fiona Nash, amid a documented conflict controversy involving her Chief of Staff's connection to a lobbying business with food industry clients. Now look at the front of the carton. The Up&Go Protein Energized Caramel displays 5 out of 5 health stars. That number may be completely correct. The strange part is that nobody has to fake the calculation. The mistake begins when a narrow nutrient score is quietly promoted into a promise that the label never made. Food ministers control the policy. A government-chaired advisory committee includes government, public health, consumer, and industry representatives. But the rating printed on an individual package is normally calculated by the manufacturer. Manufacturers choose the product category, enter nutrition and proprietary ingredient information into the calculator, download the artwork, and put it on the pack. There is no government application or pre-approval before the label appears. An official audit after the first 2 years found 97% matched the calculator. So the most powerful twist in this story is that the calculation is usually correct. Here is what happened around the launch in full. Departmental records say Nash and her advisors made repeated calls on the 5th of February 2014 asking for the site to be removed. Her Chief of Staff, Alistair Furnival, co-owned the lobbying business. Furnival resigned. Nash said the site had been published prematurely and denied improper influence. The Australian Food and Grocery Council confirmed same-day contact with her office but denied requesting the takedown. The Senate later censured Nash for misleading it, failing to produce documents, and failing to account for her actions. That is evidence of a serious conflict controversy. It is not evidence that Nash, Furnival, or the food lobby secretly selected every point in the formula. The system was ultimately launched by Australian and New Zealand food ministers in June 2014 as a voluntary scheme. The formula subtracts for energy, saturated fat, sodium, and total sugars. It gives points back for protein, fiber, fruit, vegetables, nuts, and legumes. That can encourage useful reformulation. But positive nutrients can offset negative ones. The system does not measure whether a product is ultra-processed, whether it contains artificial additives, how it fits into an entire diet, or whether 5 stars will create a broader health halo. FSANZ now says 2/3 of consumers do not understand that stars are intended mainly for comparing similar products. That means a shopper may read 5 stars as an official declaration that a product is healthy, when the system is answering a narrower question. Sanitarium is the connection people notice. It was not the first company ever to display the stars, but Sanitarium and Woolworths were the first major corporate supporters. Sanitarium committed its full range, and later research found it displayed stars on more than 96% of eligible products. A senior Sanitarium technical executive, Dr. Gregory Gambrell, served on the original technical design group, was recorded as the Health Star Rating Algorithm Development Lead in 2014, and later sat on the technical advisory group. That overlap deserves scrutiny. It also needs accurate wording. The development process included several sectors, and participation is not proof Gambrell or Sanitarium rigged the formula. Sanitarium's broad adoption was much less selective than many competitors, and its product portfolio scored highly under the agreed nutrient rules. The defensible finding is conflict risk and commercial advantage, not proven conspiracy. The bigger commercial advantage was optional disclosure. A peer-reviewed portfolio study using historical product data found that Nestlé products showing stars averaged 3.9 stars, while Nestlé products without them averaged 1.4. Mars showed a similar gap, 3.5 displayed, 1.3 hidden. Significant gaps also appeared for George Weston Foods, Kellogg, and Bega. This does not prove those companies falsified scores. It shows what voluntary labeling permits: display the flattering result and leave the weaker one off the front. The same study found Coles, Woolworths, and McCain did not show that significant selective pattern, an important counterexample. Milo demonstrated another historical loophole. Nestlé displayed 4.5 stars based on Milo prepared with skim milk. Critics said the powder alone would score far lower. Nestlé maintained the rules permitted the calculation, then removed the rating in 2018. The scandal was not secret arithmetic. It was a legal method producing a message many shoppers could misunderstand. This is where the story becomes larger than one carton. Australia remains a healthy country by many international measures, and cancer survival has improved. But the long-term weight trend, especially for children, is moving in the wrong direction. In 2022 to 2024, 67% of adults and 27% of children were living with overweight or obesity. Among children aged 5 to 17, the figure rose from 20% in 1995 to 28%. Government wanted childhood overweight and obesity to fall by 5 percentage points by 2030. Instead, the current indicator moved from 25 to 27%. High body mass has overtaken tobacco as Australia's leading disease burden risk. AIHW attributes 19,000 deaths in 2024 and $10.8 billion in health spending in 2023 to 2024 to overweight and obesity. It affected care in about 541,000 hospitalizations. That does not mean health stars caused obesity, hospital pressure, or cancer. Diet is shaped by prices, income, marketing, availability, activity, genetics, and the wider food environment. Sugar does not directly cause cancer. Excess consumption can contribute to weight gain, and excess body fat raises the risk of 13 cancers. The label is one safeguard inside a much larger system. The question is why Australia made that safeguard so easy to misunderstand. Here is the international correction. Europe does not have one universal red sticker for artificial food. European Union law requires back-of-pack nutrition information, while front labels remain fragmented and generally voluntary. France uses Nutri-Score, a green A to dark orange E nutrient grade. It is still a summary nutrient score, not an ultra-processing detector. The European Union does require specific warnings for 6 colors linked to possible effects on children's activity and attention. It also withdrew titanium dioxide from food because a genotoxicity concern could not be ruled out. Australia still permits it after FSA-NZ concluded current dietary exposure was not a safety concern. That is a genuine difference in regulatory judgment, not proof that Australia knowingly permits poison. The strongest models are not all European. England restricts less healthy products at checkouts, entrances, and aisle ends, and restricts volume promotions such as buy one, get one free. Across the United Kingdom, identified less healthy products cannot be advertised on television before 9 at night or through paid online advertising. Canada now requires a black and white high-in symbol for qualifying products high in sugar, sodium, or saturated fat. Chile combines black warning labels with child marketing and school food restrictions. The lesson is not that one foreign sticker solved obesity. It is that mandatory warnings plus restrictions can change both what companies sell and how they sell it. Now follow Australia's political record. Labor governments initiated the Health Star process. The Abbott coalition disrupted the website launch but proceeded with a voluntary scheme. The Turnbull coalition created the Healthy Food Partnership, where reformulation targets remained voluntary. The Morrison-era food ministers kept Health Stars voluntary in 2020 and promised to consider compulsion if industry failed to reach 70% uptake by November 2025. Industry reached only 39% in Australia. In February 2026, food ministers asked FSA-NZ to consider making the stars mandatory. But mandatory ratings are not law yet. More importantly, the official FSA-NZ proposal records that ministers did not request a full review of the algorithm. Australia may compel every qualifying package to display a system whose most contested design question was kept outside the full review. The Albanese government has also ordered supermarket competition work, introduced a mandatory grocery code, and commissioned a study into restricting unhealthy marketing to children. But comprehensive child marketing restrictions are still not national law. The government's Healthy Food Partnership still says companies face no penalty for missing voluntary reformulation targets. There has been movement, but much of the food health response remains voluntary, proposed, or under study. Costs and power also matter. Food manufacturing supports hundreds of thousands of Australian jobs, and changing labels, recipes, and advertising is not free. FSANZ estimates mandatory stars could affect more than 34,000 labels and cost Australia and New Zealand between $108 and $202 million. But FSANZ also estimates 10-year overweight and obesity costs of about $341 billion. A reduction of just 0.03 to 0.06% would offset label change costs. That calculation does not prove mandatory stars will achieve the saving. It does show that dramatic claims of economic ruin require much stronger evidence. Australia's supermarket structure adds leverage. Coles and Woolworths account for roughly 67% of national supermarket sales. The ACCC describes the market as concentrated and found rising product margins and supplier bargaining imbalances. That is, an oligopoly or duopoly, not proof of an illegal monopoly. It matters here because shelf position, checkout placement, multi-buy promotions, and private label choices can shape what millions of Australians see before any star is read. There is one boundary we cannot cross. This evidence does not prove Sanitarium secretly rigged the formula. It does not prove named companies falsified their ratings. It does not prove that health stars caused obesity, cancer, or supermarket concentration. What it proves is narrower and more useful. A correctly calculated, government-endorsed comparison score can create a broader health impression, while voluntary display lets high ratings appear more often than low ones. That is why the strongest version of this story does not need a cartoon villain. The company can follow the formula. The rating can be legitimate. The drink can still be highly processed. The government can intend to help consumers. The system can still reward the wrong impression. So who really benefits? Consumers receive a quick comparison tool, and some products have been reformulated. That is a real benefit. Companies with strong ratings gain a government-backed health signal. Under a voluntary scheme, some companies could display their best-looking results and omit the rest. Supermarkets benefit from profitable packaged categories, paid promotions, and control over shelf visibility, although there is no evidence health stars created their market power. Governments receive a visible, comparatively inexpensive policy while avoiding harder fights over advertising, placement, taxation, and enforcement. That last point is an inference from the policy record, not proof of intent. The late payers are families navigating labels they often misunderstand, taxpayers funding preventable disease, and children forming lifelong preferences inside a marketing environment designed by adults. The answer is not to ban packaged food or pretend one label can fix obesity. Before the reform list, ask 3 separate questions. First, what does this star actually calculate? Second, what does it leave out, including processing, additives, and the product's role in a whole diet? Third, am I comparing it with a genuinely similar product using the same amount? Nutrient score, processing, and dietary role. 3 lanes. No health halo carpooling. Then make 4 protections work together. First, make front labels universal so a low score cannot simply disappear. Second, conduct a full independent algorithm review before compulsion, including added sugars, intense sweeteners, processing, and the ability of positive nutrients to mask risk nutrients. Third, add clear nutrient-specific warnings and restrict unhealthy food marketing, checkout placement, and volume promotions directed at children. Fourth, publish audits, conflicts, company-level compliance, and enforcement results so trust comes from evidence rather than branding. Making the existing star compulsory could close the selective display loophole. But without reviewing what the star means, it could also make the health halo compulsory. Look again at the 5-star carton. The question is no longer whether the number was calculated correctly. It is what should 5 stars actually promise an Australian parent. If you could choose one reform first, mandatory stars, black high-in warnings, limits on child advertising, or supermarket placement rules, which would you choose? And which Australian product should we test against the system next?